Yo everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at Sonic 2, the Genesis mega hit. But is it a great sequel as it's hyped up to be? We'll find out in this video today. Let's jam.
You gotta do what?
I gotta believe.
Alright, as I said in the last video, I wasn't born in the era when Sonic 2 came out. I also played this with the other classics on the Mega Collection. Though for its history, not much can be said about Sonic 2. Sonic 1 was a success, and Sega wanted a sequel. Though at first they didn't plan on making a sequel, the team didn't start working on it until 5 months after Sonic 1's release, and it was mostly done by the American team. But whatever they did, it must have paid off, because Sonic 2 would end up being the best-selling Genesis game, and one of the best-selling Sonic games for a while. Though part of that could also be because it came with the Genesis, which increased its sales. Nevertheless, Sonic 2 released a very positive reception, and how could it not? The game was faster, more colorful, it was faster, had more zones, faster, more characters. Did I mention it was faster? Because it is faster. Sonic 2 increased the speed cap from Sonic 1. You could go at a decent speed in the first game, but you can never really reach the top speed as much as you can here. Helping in increasing your speed is a new spin dash. This move allows Sonic to gain constant speed from a standstill, which helps when getting through loops and up ledges. In Sonic 1, if you got stuck on one of those, you have to run back and gain speed, while the spin dash mitigates that entirely. The spin dash also enhances the movement of the game. By jumping right after you spin, you're able to jump farther and higher in the air from flat ground. This makes a huge difference when platforming, as it allows you to reach higher platforms that you couldn't reach without the spin dash. But of course, I couldn't talk about the gameplay without mentioning a new character, Tails. Tails is Sonic's sidekick who follows him around the levels. He's not as fast as him, but he keeps up using his two tails, which allow him to fly. If you're playing as him by yourself, he can't fly, unfortunately, which sucks. I guess the reason being that they did not want to break the level design because of Tails' flight ability. But they should have really accommodated the levels for Tails whenever you played as him. I mean, one of the main advertisements for the game was that Tails could fly. And if you had another controller, you can fly as him when playing with Sonic and Tails. So why wasn't implemented when he was solo? Probably because of the quick development. However, Tails in the main game is a bit restrictive and can easily be left behind by Sonic. Still, it's very fun to play with another person throughout the game. Tons of memories were made back then, playing with friends. That's about it for the big additions for the gameplay itself. So let's look at the story. So the story of this game takes place after the first. Sonic has traveled to West Side Island for more adventure and is found by Tails, who takes a liking and looks up to him. They both work on a tornado in Sonic's place until Eggman attacks the island looking for the 7th Chaos Emerald. The 7th Emerald, which wasn't in the last game, is a stone of legend on the West Side Island, and they said that with all the emeralds together, it holds a legendary power. Of course, once again, Sonic is not going to let Eggman have his way, and the two heroes set out to stop him. While at the same time, Eggman has built his most dangerous weapon yet, the Death Egg. It's up to Sonic and Tails to defeat him and destroy the Death Egg. That's a lot, but most of the stuff comes from the manual. There's this idea that Sonic never had stories, so when they focus on it in later games, some will say it didn't make sense for a Sonic game. However, I think that this statement is very wrong, because while the story as a whole is not presented in the earlier games that much, you can tell the developers want to tell more grand stories with thrills and stakes. This goes back to what I said in the Sonic 1 review, with how this was a part of the reason Sonic was cool, and it made him cooler than Mario and other platformers at the time. While most Mario stories revolve around just rescuing a princess, Sonic was trying to save the entire world from roboticization, and even more. The difference in Sonic also reflects in his worlds and the levels themselves. So let's look into them. There are 11 zones in the game, that's nearly double from the last, but now there are 2 acts instead of 1 in most of the zones, and the acts themselves are longer. This style is an improvement from 1 because it makes zones not overstay their welcome, and they're also able to make level designs longer and more varied in both acts instead of splitting them into 3s. And on level design, because Sonic's increased speed, levels have become more complicated. You can just see how big the first level of Sonic 1 is compared to Sonic 2. There are more secrets and alternate paths than in most levels of Sonic 1. You can see this in the first act of Emerald Hill, which in itself is sort of an expansion on Green Hill. The level design is more suited for Sonic going fast with less platforming on most routes to show off how much speed you can gain. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't any secrets, as when you go through the level, you may notice checkpoints in places where you would normally never reach them on a casual playthrough. And there's a good reason for that. As mentioned before, Sonic and Tails are looking for the Chaos Emeralds. and this time getting them revolves around getting 50 rings and heading into a checkpoint and jumping into the portal. While getting 50 rings can be a tedious task, I appreciate the game now allows more opportunities for you to get the emeralds. The problem is the special stages themselves. While the concept is cool having Sonic collect rings in a 3D space, I think the Genesis was showing its lack of power in trying to play these stages. First off, there's a huge input delay with Sonic, which can hinder your performance on the stage. Any obstacles do not load in on time because of the way the Genesis is rendering the 3D space. This combined with the input lag can make special stages a hell to go through. On top of that, if you have Tails with you, who also has input lag from Sonic's input lag, makes you have to put an input in way earlier than expected for an obstacle. Like I said, because of the rendering, it can be hard to tell when an obstacle is coming by itself. So having to prepare for that, on top of the input lag, just makes the special stage so much worse. At least if you got the emerald, you got something. But if you don't get an emerald, you get booted out of the stage with no rings at all. This can be really bad when the checkpoint is near a boss and you don't have any rings to start out the fight. And it's another reason that makes getting the emeralds a very infuriating task to do. However, the reward this time for getting all the emeralds is something special, which I'll cover later in the video. Going back to Emerald Hill, what is nice is that between Act 1 and 2, you can get all 7 Chaos Emeralds. However, it may cost your sanity. Other than that stuff, the level was a great introduction to the game, and while it borrows some aesthetic elements from Green Hill, it still manages to stand on its own feet as a good first level. Plus, that music is very iconic. Next is Chemical Plant, which is a fan favorite. But don't get me wrong, this is not a bad level in the slightest, but I feel it's overhyped. I love the aesthetic of toxic plant in the background and how the chemicals are used throughout with the obstacles in the liquid you are in. I know that the infamous section exists, and I even got stuck on it when I was younger. It's very easy to get crushed by the platforms or drown in the water, but replaying it, I don't think it's that bad. What is bad though are the platforms above you that you can slip off of and have to start the entire section from the beginning. However, if you take the alternate route, you're able to skip this section entirely and go to the boss. Another great thing about this level is how much speed you can get. They have evolved the more platform and heavy levels in the right way. There isn't a marble zone in this game. You always find some way to gain speed, but they always find a way to mix platforming inside of it. This is great because instead of sectioning off levels by speed or platforming, they're combining the two and making the player's skill really revolve around if you're going to go fast or slow in this level. One issue I do have though is the boss, especially with Tails. While Tails can help you and get rings and do more damage to bosses, he can also hinder you by hitting bosses while you're about to hit him, causing you to slip through their invincibility frames. This isn't too bad on a boss with stable ground, but when falling off a platform in the boss fight causes the cost of your life, Tails can become a pain. And the worst thing is he can die as many times as he wants and will keep coming back, but you die once and you lose a whole life. Other than that, Chemical Plant shows how speed can work in a more obstacle-filled level, and is a big step up from Marble Zone. Now on to Aquatic Ruin, and oh boy, it's a water level. Is what I would be saying if it wasn't so good. It's the only water level in the game, and it's a night and day compared to Labyrinth. Literally. For instance, you can beat the entire zone without even touching the water if you're skilled enough. And even if you are in water, it's not frustrating and it's more manageable to navigate. I love the ruins and jungle area in the background and the temple traps that fits the theme. However, a problem with the game shows here. You see, the design of the game, for the most part, in most levels, one should go fast. But in order to give more difficulty, I guess, they put enemies that jump right in front of you in the loops and walls. These cheap shots for enemies are not really great design because instead of actually having a challenge for the player, they're just putting stuff to slow them down intentionally for no reason. I'd rather them be put in areas where I can approach them in a better manner without getting from something I couldn't see. Besides that, Aquatic Ruin still stands out and redeems the water level in Sonic from what they happened before. And I think it's how a water level should be in a Sonic game. Casino Night is the first actual pinball themed level in the franchise, and it leaves off a very good impression. You can spend minutes here racking up points and rings from the pinball machines, and the level navigation contains bouncing off different bumpers. This will become a staple in the series for a reason. It's so much fun just racking up points and getting rings. You can spend days here, just like actual gambling. The level really makes you feel like you're in a giant pinball machine. Even the boss of the stage uses this. The design of this level makes it one of my favorites in the game, and the level itself feels like a break from the standard design. Next is Hilltop Zone, and I think this zone is very underrated. When discussing Sonic 2, I noticed most people skip over this zone. Some even say it's bland, but I think that's further from the truth. I love the colorful hills above the sky. It makes the level feel very comfy. even with the lava being a hazard. You navigate through segways and seesaws, and you can use these tools to get higher on the mountain instead of going through the caves. In that sense, the level is like aquatic ruin, where if you're good enough, you can make it truly without going underground for the most part. This is what Sonic 2 excels at when it comes to level design, as they provide better areas for the player to go through if you have more skill to get to them. And levels like these end up being some of my favorites in the game. Now we've reached the point where I said the game starts to dip in quality for a bit. Mystic Cave is a level that I'm pretty mixed on. While I enjoy the aesthetic of the level design is too cramped. As I mentioned in the last review, these games have a problem with crush detection. So when you make a level that's all about being cramped, that can be a problem. Not to say that the level is unplayable or anything like that. You still have enough time to avoid some of the crush traps, but the space you have to run feels too caved in. No pun intended. I guess this is the point though, but what I can't get over is the pit. I get that it's an iconic part of the level, but this is just bad design. It's a whole section where the player cannot even escape no matter what they do. You can avoid this area with the multiple paths that are around it, but it still does not excuse the poorly designed area. Imagine a player on their last life with no continues getting stuck in this area. And yes, there isn't a save system again, at least in the original version. You could give Sonic 1 a pass for being the first game, but Sonic 2 came out after Super Mario World got its popularity. At the time, saving was starting to be implemented in big games like this. Sonic 2 is a longer game, so there's more to lose when restarting. Overall, Mystic Cave is alright, but it's a very mixed bag design-wise. Oil Ocean brings the quality back up, and I used to think this level was really underrated until Mania came out. Anyway, as the name implies, Oil Ocean involves navigating oil-based obstacles through an oil rig, like sliding down oil slides and not drowning in the oil ocean itself. There are also these cannons that can send you flying different areas. Sometimes they glitch out the level though. The zone is better played by staying on the top path and gradually going to the bottom. But if you go on the bottom path, sometimes you'll be struggling with staying out of the oil. That would be terrible if someone lit a match here, huh? Other than that, it's cool navigating the oil rig, and there is nothing here too bad or too good. But I feel it's another one of those levels in Sonic 2 that's more laid back for players, even if you have to be on your toes at the bottom. Now after Oil Ocean, this is where I say Sonic 2 begins to fall really hard. Before I go into Metropolis, I want to establish what I mean when discussing difficulty for Sonic itself. Throughout the game, most level designs are catered to players going really fast, and as such, the level design itself isn't too hard to deal with. However, in order for the developers to add more challenge to the game, difficulties involve putting enemies in your way where you can't see them, making the player react to it fast, or in most cases they won't and just get hit. This method of design is not good to begin with, as instead of natural difficulty, it focuses more if the player knows when to stop rather than placing an obstacle and the player has to think their way through it. Now, don't get me wrong, the idea of learning the level on repeat playthroughs is not a problem here. It's the way the difficulty is set up. Up to this point, that has been an issue with game design, but it never would hamper the experience as a whole, just a minor annoyance. So while there has been points that have challenged the player with level design like the water section and chemical plant, most of the difficulty has been these cheap pop-ups. You see, because of this, when a level shows up all of a sudden and is way harder than what you're used to because you're near the end, a spike occurs with the game onto the player. If Sonic 2 had a more gradual difficulty curve, this wouldn't be such an issue as the game itself has been preparing you for each upcoming challenge. Not only does this next level suffer from this, but it also suffers particularly bad design in general, as mentioned when looking at Mystic Cave. Prepare to enter Metropolis.
Oh, now what? I suppose you're gonna show me. Oh, gee, that's very nice. Oh, what is this? Some kind of magic act?
Would anyone else like to enter
the Metropolis Zone?
Hot damn, this shit sucks. Not only are there 3 long acts instead of 2, not only are there enemies in places where you can't even dodge them, not only is level design complete and utter garbage with spikes and hazards all over the place, but the level itself will not even let you dream of getting your rings back. There are many points where the stage wants you to go fast, but will put a spike or an enemy in your way just to hurt you. And then there are the enemies themselves. Alone, most of the enemies are not a problem, but because of the way the level is structured with tight corridors and enemies lined up on slopes like these crab beats, you have no way to avoid them. Oh, and let's not forget these pests on the freaking walls, not letting you get an inch without losing rings. The main problem comes from enemy placement for the most part, but the way the level design is set up is also terrible to accommodate that. This difficulty of the level doesn't come from design testing the player, It comes from cheap shots to stop the player constantly. I've beaten Sonic 2 multiple times, and I haven't even mastered this level because there isn't a design to master, just cheap ways for the game to kill you. At this point you might be saying, well, why don't you use it? And the it I'm referring to is Supersonic. Hey guys, this is post-editing, post-recording. So I looked through the footage of Metropolis and I noticed that there was a time I went to go get a drink. And when I went to go get a drink and I came back, I noticed I had died. And I went back in the footage and I realized that I had died because an enemy had came and killed Sonic while I was standing there at the starting point of the level. So, you know, even this is in Act 3 of Metropolis. So even like just sitting there, just, you know, trying to rest, there's no rest in Metropolis. You know, this level's something, man. Anyway, back to the video. So remember during the story section of this video where I talked about the 7 Chaos Emeralds together brought about a great power? Well, this is it. If you can maintain your sanity and beat every special stage, you are rewarded with Supersonic. This is a really great reward for your trouble. Supersonic is twice as fast as regular Sonic and has invincibility. You have to collect 50 rings to get him, but you better hope you want to transform at the time because as soon as you jump, you'll be forced into the transformation. In a way, the game is giving you a tool to just breeze through it, but it takes a lot of work to get. Even with all that power, Supersonic can still get crushed and can still be trapped in the pit of Mystic Cave. Supersonic can make levels like Metropolis a lot easier, however you still need to get the rings in order to use them, which can be a problem. And if you run out of rings, you lose the transformation. Still, this is way better than some freaking flowers. Anyway, back to Metropolis. I think that the devs knew how much hell this zone was because the boss here is pretty easy, but forces you to take damage to hit it. Speaking on those bosses, they're more of a step up from the first game, but they are still easy to brute force because of the rings, making learning patterns sometimes useless. However, there are a few that are very creative in how you attack, bringing more engagement to the player, but some are just pushovers. Overall, I say most of the bosses are pretty good. At the end though, Metropolis, even if I can use Supersonic, it's not going to fix the level design. It's just me skipping over the stupid enemies and the stupid obstacles. I'd say this is probably the lowest point in the game and one of the worst levels in classic Sonic, period. After that hell, we finally have a sort of break with Sky Chase. Sonic and Tails ride in a tornado to stop Eggman's airship, and the level has you on a smooth ride, just hitting enemies in the air. It almost feels like the game is letting you catch your breath between Metropolis and the final section. And with the calm music, it's enjoyable to play this section, and it's also a great and memorable set piece. So Sonic and Tails finally catch up to the Winged Fortress, and then this happens. Damn. Tails, you're a real one. There hasn't really been any cutscenes throughout the game, but this is when the game starts showing off its story. Seeing Tails take Sonic all the way and go down to help Sonic is a really touching moment. This is why I like to play the game with Tails by his side, even though he can be a hindrance, because it makes scenes like these more impactful when your buddy's no longer with you. Now, Winged Fortress is a very difficult level, but it's in the right way, with more platforming challenges that also test your speed, as many platformers do not last that long when standing on them. There's only one point here where I say it's bad design, which involves these boosters. If you hold right, you die when getting on them and fall into your doom. This feels like one last cheap shot at the player to take a life from you, which again is really bad near the end of the game with no save system. Other than that section, there's actually areas that allow you to take shortcuts to the level, like taking damage in these fans skip a whole part. As the last full level, Winged Fortress is able to bring good difficulty and suspense for the final showdown with Eggman. Even the boss gets a good challenge, as brute forcing it will only send your rings out of the barrier, so you have to be strategic in how you approach it. They even give you an extra life before the level ends, to prepare for the storm. At this point, Eggman is getting away again, but Sonic can't let Tails' sacrifice go in vain. But then this happens. Tails, being a real one, comes back and saves Sonic, letting him up to Eggman's jet so he can stop the Death Egg. These cutscenes aren't super deep or complex, but they enhance the gameplay, especially when playing with Sonic and Tails. as your buddy that has been with you along the way is trying everything he can to help you save the world. Like I said, this story combined with the gameplay was what made Sonic cool. At the time, most video game sidekicks weren't really as active as Tails was. You never saw Luigi doing this with Mario, and the only other platformer you had with a more story focus was Mega Man, but even his sidekicks didn't help him like that. And that is a part of why Sonic was so cool. The characters felt more active in the story. Finally, we have reached the Death Egg, the final zone, and it's got some problems. Once again, you have to beat the bosses in the final zone with 0 rings. This was fine in the first game because the boss was set up with a simple pattern, so it was more on the player's patience to handle the fight. Compare that to here, where you have to take on 2 bosses in one go when the entire game's been having you rely on rings and you have a problem. What you are seeing now is 2 different playthroughs. On one side I have all the Chaos Emeralds, which gives me Super Sonic, and on the other I did not collect the Chaos Emeralds at all. You see the difference? Because I don't. You can get away with it in one because there wasn't any bonus, and this problem could be forgiven if collecting the emeralds gave you rings or even Super Sonic in the fight for going through that work. But no, you get nothing. Silver Sonic is not that hard to deal with and can be exploited easily. However, the Death Egg robot is a different story. This guy can kill you from the freaking foreground, and you won't even be able to see what hits you. And yes, with patience you can take him down, but there are many parts where the game just wants you to die to see your error. You already know the game over thing at this point, so you understand how poor of a design this is. An easy solution would have been to get the player some rings in the beginning, but maybe have them not spawn when Sonic gets hit in this level. You can keep the difficulty of the fight and get the player a higher chance of learning and winning. I will say, it is understandable this location not having rings with it being Eggman's ultimate weapon, but it just doesn't mesh well with the gameplay. So finally, after getting past Eggman and the Death Egg explodes, Sonic falls down to the earth, and then and that's how you make a memorable ending. Sonic and Tails set off for their next adventure, and in a way you have more respect for Tails, as he was always able to help Sonic in ways that he wouldn't be able to do it alone. You really see the difference here from the first game. I think that's what makes Tails memorable and a great character. He is able to act even beyond his fear to help others. He's an active character. It's understandable why this game is seen as someone's favorite, with many memorable levels and moments, and I can see that being stronger with a friend or a sibling playing with you. It's the reason why, even with all the problems, I can still play this game with Sonic and Tails, because I feel the enhancement it brings to the gameplay. And the simple story of the game goes a long way. Now, let's talk about the extra content. Earlier in the video, I talked about how the development time was shorter than the last game, which would explain some of the problems that the game has, especially with level design. In Sonic 2's case, there was a lot of content left on the cutting room floor, including levels, items, concepts, and ideas. Some of these would be implemented into future games, while others would never leave the dev table. One of these concepts was time travel, and sets of levels would have been separated by time. These levels would be separated by the past, the present, a good future, and the bad future. And the level list would change depending on which path you went on. Part of these ideas were kept for the next game, Sonic CD. While that idea would not be implemented into Sonic 2, many of the zones from that draft would be developed, but not finished for the game. The most well known of these zones was the Hidden Palace Zone, which would be remade for the mobile port of Sonic 2. And it would be the optional level that was entered by going down the pit in Mystic Cave. I wish it stayed in the original game because that would have been a cool secret and honestly makes Mystic Cave a lot better in my eyes. There are more cut zones that never saw the light of day, like Hidden Palace. These include Ocean Wind, Sand Shower, the Wood Zone, Rock World Zone, and Genocide City Zone. Not much is known of any of these zones, But apparently Genocide City would have been a one-act zone that took place after Metropolis' first 2 acts, but instead they gave Metropolis a 3rd act, probably due to time constraints. This could have elevated the issue of Metropolis overstaying its welcome and could have added to the visual storytelling that Sonic 2 excelled in so well. As at this point in the game, you would be able to see the full extent of Eggman's evil mechanizations. While I wish this content was still in the game, it's still amazing that the team was able to put together a full game that was bigger than the first in less time. Truly a great accomplishment on its own. Now I already talked about the soundtrack earlier in the video, so there's not much to say here, other than that it kicks ass. Sonic 2 music is more upbeat than Sonic 1, but it still fits the atmosphere of each level well. The score once again melds well with the gameplay, creating that unique Sonic experience you get when playing these games. Check it out. So overall, Sonic 2 is still a great sequel that takes what Sonic 1 does and improves it dramatically. Although there can be many issues with level design, with sections wanting to go fast just to get you hit and some questionable design choices near the end of the game to try and bring the difficulty up, it still manages to be an enjoyable experience. The game has flaws, sure, but those flaws do not overshadow the great parts of the level design and the gameplay. There are still many areas and secrets that I don't even know and even found when getting footage for this review. On the topic of flaws, I don't think flaws really kill a game unless it's dramatically hurting everything with the gameplay. And you see, for the vast majority of Sonic 2, it excels heavily in its gameplay, its visual storytelling, its levels, and its charm. So yeah, Sonic 2 is an excellent platformer that deserves all the praise it gets. You may have to put up with some hiccups, but overall it's worth it. I will say, if you want to alleviate some of the problems with the game, you should play the mobile port. It's free on iOS and Android devices, and it adds a lot of content. For one, Tails can actually fly now, and there's actually some new level sections that accommodate his flight. You can also play as Knuckles, which you can do if you have Sonic and Knuckles, or the Knuckles and Sonic 2 game itself. You can play the Hidden Palace Zone by going through the pit I told you about in Mystic Cave. The special stages run a lot better, and there's no input lag when going through them. Metropolis is still Metropolis though. They can't really fix that. But it's a better experience. It's very unfortunate that this was not ported to consoles. I hope it gets ported one day. Anyway guys, go play Sonic 2. See you in the next video. I'm out. And don't forget, you gotta believe.
Territory! Territory, it's a territory! Territory, it's a territory! Territory, it's a territory!
Thanks for listening everyone. We'll be seeing you again soon.